Ain't no hat stepping with Marcus J live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Thank y'all to everybody that's still listening to us. They don't really care about us. A little Michael Jackson action there. I was just saying to Grizzy during the break, that song gets so much better when you actually know the words. Hopefully, you know, the rock groove didn't mess y'all up too much, but it's Michael Jackson, so hopefully y'all can get over that. Ain't no hat stepping with Marcus J live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio, sponsored by Live Action Captions and Free Spirit Enterprises. Thank you to everybody that's listening to us on TuneIn. Thank you to everybody who has checked us out on www.legacyinternetradio. And of course, special thank you to those folks that are listening to our replays right now on TuneIn. Charleston, y'all, we got to talk about it. You know, it was definitely one of those things that when we all saw what happened with Dylan Roof going into the church in Charleston on Wednesday of last week. Well, let me back up. Just for those folks who literally have been living under a rock for the last week or so. Basically, Dylan Roof, 21-year-old white male who has since been discovered to have had some racist tendencies and manifestos and all that kind of stuff that have discussed his disdain for all those folks who are not white people. He went to a church in Charleston, South Carolina. And by most accounts, he hung out for at least an hour during the Bible study that the church had and basically kicked it with him for a while until he found that it was time for him to make his move, at which time he pulled out his gun and he shot and killed 9 people. Among the dead was the pastor of the church, who was also a state senator. Also amongst the dead were 6 females, 3 of which were elderly. And then 3 males, of course. And so I wanted to kind of set it up very, very generically, because I wanted to give the panel an opportunity to kind of share their thoughts or what they know about it and just kind of get some of this emotion off of us. And then we can kind of break it down and really, really talk about it. 804-402-2893 is the number to dial if you want to be a part of the discussion. We'll take phone calls, get your comment in real quick, and then we'll let you go so that we can keep the phone lines open for whoever may want to jump in. Big Bro Joe, you up first. What's your thoughts, man?
Hey, first thing I have to sit here and say is peace to all those people who have lost their lives behind that foolishness of a coward. It hurts my soul to sit there and I know where that church is in Charleston. I mean, I lived in South Cac. You know that, LB. Lived in South Cac for 5 years. Used to go to Charleston quite often. And it's not too far from the college. So, you know, for him to go into a church and to kick it, because the church was very open. It did what churches, quote unquote, do. It allowed people to come in and fellowship and minister. For me, I'm going to put this on 2 sections. The first thing I'm going to sit here and say is, I don't know if Dylan, whatever the dude's name is, what's his name again?
Dylan Roof.
I don't know if Dylan Roof would have came in my hood, in my church, and I wouldn't have known what was going on with him, or I wouldn't have. It's just funny to me. When you grew up where I grew up, and you grew up in a hood-like area, churches were always sacred, and you always know who comes into your house. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to take you to task on that, simply because the whole thing with it being churches, and it was one of the things that I did want to bring up, because we talked about this on All Throttle Radio on Thursday, the biker show here on Legacy Internet Radio. We talked a little bit about them because most of them are concealed. Most of them carry conceals.
Me too.
And I understand that you do, and that's the reason why I'm going to take this task with you. When you're in a church, and I understand the whole thing about, you know, always being strapped and always being ready, but when you're in a church, I think there is, unless you're the Nation of Islam, your guard is down a little bit more than it would be in normal places. And, you know, you can shake your head that way. Let me just make this point, and then I'll have you respond, and we'll get the whole panel in. But, you know, when you go to Bible study,
Yeah, I wouldn't be thinking.
When you go to Bible study, the whole nature of it is to obviously read the Bible, to understand about, the word. And you can't walk into a Bible study without getting a hug, without somebody saying, I love you, brother, without there being some sort of guard being let down. And the fact that he kicked it with them for an hour was the time frame that he spent lowering that guard. Now, you can sit there and say how alert you would be all you want, but the truth of the matter is, if someone was with you for an hour, it is very possible that your guard could have been down to the point where someone could have done something unfortunate. To that, you say what? Caller, we know you were calling. If call us back for some reason, that call dropped. Caller, we saw you calling. Call us back. 804-402-2893, Joe.
Well, I mean, listen to what you said. You set up the point that I proved. You have to look at certain things. When you're in the church, you have certain people who are responsible for making sure that people are safe in the church. And you're right. When you come in, if you would have come in my church, you would get a hug. Mm-hmm. You would get and people might not even understand that you getting pat down right there. Yo, come on, real talk. You would be getting, you'd be getting a handshake. You could be getting, hey,
if
bro,
they didn't recognize you.
If they don't recognize you, that's something that happens, and people might not realize it. You might not think about it. You might not think about the guard being let down. But there's always those folks in there who are checking stuff out, who are supposed to be alert to what's going on. And I still say, I don't care who comes in. I got feelings about it.
So you're upset that nothing was. I don't want to put words in your mouth. So let me try to understand what you're saying. You're upset that nothing was done to help prevent this shooter from taking out as many lives as he did.
Well, understanding what the way it was framed, the way we frame it right now, we sit there and say that Marcus knows me. Marcus J knows me. He knows my mentality. He knows that I don't sit with my back to doors. Right. I can see what's going. Yeah, but I can see what's going on behind me. I never sit in certain areas. When I'm around, I don't care where I'm at, whether I'm in church or wherever. Number one, I carry my weapon with me everywhere I go. Now, it is what it is. I sleep with it. Now, to say I could have reacted to what was going on directly, I agree with that.
But you have a law enforcement background, right?
Right. So, but even at that, you know what? I'm always leery, and I guess that's the one thing that I have that's my downfall. Mm-hmm. Just being leery. All right, caller. Caller, you got something you want to say over here?
What's going on, family? This is K-Dub down in Atlanta, man. How y'all doing?
What's up, Dub?
What up, Dub?
What's going on, brother?
Peace to all the fathers. Happy
Peace,
Father's Day, fellas.
Same to you, brother.
Say what's up to the Diva. Diva's in the room as well.
What's up, Diva? How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good.
I know you're listening. I know you're listening to us.
I'm gonna be honest, man. I this is just my opinion. I just wanted to call and talk about it because it's just been me and my wife basically been talking about this over the past couple of days. But you know how the saying is, if you don't study and learn your history, you're bound to repeat it.
True.
I would say that this situation right here, along with a number of other situations that have happened to specifically black people, if you look at it, a lot of the things that are happening are recreations of things that had been happening back in the 60s, back in the 50s, back in the 40s. And I can't say that I don't really know what it is that we can do, because nothing. What is it that we can honestly do to make people that live in these rural areas, more specifically in the South, what can we do to make these people stop hating and committing all of these crimes against black people just because they're black, or just because we're quote unquote taking over the country and doing all of these things?
I hold your thought right there, Dub. Grizzy.
Well, I mean, I see Dub's point. It does seem when I got the news, it did seem kind of a sense of hopelessness came across me, not because of the act, but another part was he was 21, and I used to say here at Legacy Internet Radio, and me and Ruben used to always say it's a process of elimination. The older heads will die off, and the younger generation will have more education. I'm thinking logically that the old South will die off because we're better equipped to teach their kids. But what I'm learning is that there are still pockets, or probably even not, I'll take that back, not pockets, but still powers, people that are in very influential places that still hold on to old Jim Crow thinking, and the only way they can get us, they just got to die off. When I say die off, I'm not talking about no violence or anything like that. That's just like the baby boomers coming that's going to usurp all the Social Security. 40, 50 years from now, hopefully all of these thinkers of this old South will die off and we can move on from this.
Diva, jump in.
Just making a comment on what you just said, Grizzy. I think that is true. I think it would diminish. Now, will it be eliminated all the way? I don't know. But I have the same thought process that those people, and I'm talking about on both sides, not just on
Black
that
people can't
side.
be racist.
But I'm saying with black folks, we still have that same slave mentality.
Right.
So those people need to die off too.
Right. Dub,
You know what I'm saying?
hold the line, Dub. We know you're there. Stay with us. Joe?
Grizzy made a crazy statement, and he said that black folk can't be racist. Yeah, we can.
We can't.
Yeah,
It does
can.
another show.
Nah, but
No.
I mean,
Prejudice, we can't necessarily. I won't say we
Prejudice,
can't be
yes.
racist, but we're more. We can show more a prejudice. But as far as being racist, if you go by a definition wise, it's kind of
Okay. AK,
I understand. I understand. It's a play on words. It's a play on words.
It's a play on words. It's semantics. I mean, just like it's semantics when we say, we're males, versus men as fathers. I mean, all of that is semantics. You know what I'm saying? And so I understand where you're going with that, but I would tend to agree if we're talking about the clinical definition or the Webster's definition of racism, there needs to be some sort of power involved for you to be racist. You can be a bigot. You know what I mean? But, I think racist is a word that has been used to describe someone who doesn't like other races or doesn't like people in other cultures. We use the word racist because it's easy, it's common, it's right there. In the previous generation, bigotry was the word. Bigotry is more accurate. Because just because you white doesn't mean you racist. Because just because you white don't mean you got power. You know what I mean?
Archie
so
Bunker.
everybody,
Exactly.
Archie Bunker was a bigot. He wasn't racist because he
had
had no
no black-
power.
yeah,
he was
he
just as desolate and poor, as the next guy. Dub, go ahead and jump in and make your next point, and then we let you go. You can get back in later on if you hear something else you want to jump in. I want to open up the line in case anybody is listening, but it's open for you to call back if you want to.
Appreciate it. What I wanted to do, since I got this right here, I wanted to see how, well, not see, but just speak on real quick how it correlated into this whole thing about this Confederate flag.
But don't get too far on that because that's a piece that we're going to get into later on. So that's one. If you're going to get on the Confederate flag, save that. That's for later. If you want to get on the Confederate flag, we want to save that. You'll have to call us back because we're not talking about that just now. We're going to talk about that later. So give me something else.
Well, let me just say this. And I'm going to end the call. Hey, listen, man. I'm going to just tell you personally, it was real. It was more. I was more sad. You know what I'm saying? Because like I've always said on the show, we'll be talking about something else, next week or whatever like that. If I'm not mistaken, what was the hot thing we was talking about? Wasn't it damn, it's so much. I was about to say the white chick that pretended to be black. But
Yeah, it was.
That's what it was.
That's what it was. And the week before that, it was Bruce Jenner. And it's always something,
Even more recent, something about the decision in regards to Tamir Rice up in Ohio. But it's becoming more and more consistent or what have you. And I mean, more so. And I'm gonna tell you on a personal note, one of the individuals that got killed, from what I talking with my mother, she went to school with her at Livingstone College in North Carolina. So she was about it, and I'm getting a little feedback. I'm just, just thinking about how, think about it, man. We all have family that go to church, that go to revival, or go to a church event or whatever. And just this person, people believe in such a way, man, just take lives away. I mean, one of the ladies that told the story, her son was the 29-year-old kid that got killed. And from what I understand, he said, look, shoot me so not to shoot her. And I believe the gunman said to her, I'm going to spare your life so that you can tell people what happened.
That's exactly.
What kind of shit is?
Shit is okay.
Shit is okay right now.
Come on, man.
We got you.
Really?
Ain't no hashtag on Marcus J. Dub. I'm with you on that one, man. I definitely, if you're able, and because I know you're busy, if you're able, call us back in the next segment because we will be talking about the Confederate flag in the next segment. I just didn't want to get into it in this segment. It's scheduled for the next segment. And so hang in there with us and call us back in the next segment, 804-402-2893. Our brother K-Dub. Brother, thank you. Shout out to you.
Peace,
and
peace, peace.
Appreciate it. Ain't no hashtag on Marcus J. Grizz?
I mean, all right. So here's what I've, from over the weekend, and I've watched some of the Sunday, I'm a Sunday morning political junkie, so I watch all the shows. And one of the things that I want to say it was on Meet the Press.
Chuck Todd?
Eugene Robinson
okay.
was
Chuck
the
Todd.
brother. Chuck Todd, yeah, but the brother that was on there, Eugene Robinson, was saying, anytime this country talks about race, it's always from, and I'm paraphrasing the panel, it's always from our perspective. We're the ones that got to talk about race. And what I think Charleston should show the yuppies and the white liberals and all the white folk that voted for Barack Obama, because those are their family members that live down south. They're the same ones that are one or two generations removed that voted for Barack Obama because they got a little education about themselves. White people need to start having a conversation about race. Why do we have to have a conversation all the time?
Let me jump in right there because I'm glad that was a perfect setup. And the reason why I say that's a perfect setup because I did a story this week in social media that talked about, it says racist employee, but I don't like the word racist unless you're rich. And so bigoted employee fired after praising Dylan Roof for the good deeds that he's done. That's basically the gist of the story. There was a person who was a member of the fire department who said some stuff and it got him fired, basically immediately. It got him fired because he basically supported Dylan Roof. And then there was a young girl who worked at the movie theater who said in a series of tweets, and I didn't read his because his were bad, but he just basically supported him. But hers were not only bad because they supported him, but they were just stupid, ignorant. So I'm going to read hers, and then I'm going to tell you about a conversation I had. You'll understand the full context. She says if you're a minority and don't like it, go back. That's what freedom is. She said half minorities might as well have "you should feel bad for being white" tattooed on their foreheads. She also says don't complain about being a minority and say whites are a problem when your ancestors chose to come here knowing they would be a minority. This is what she said. She worked for Regal Cinemas. Her name is Hailey. Hailey had a conversation with her boss who saw these posts. And she also posts after the heat is on now from the previous stuff that I just read. The heat is on now. And so she says, is my job affected by my opinion on Twitter? And her boss says, no, you work tomorrow. Social media has no affiliation with our corporation. See you then. Now, social media blew up. Regal Cinemas got embarrassed. They eventually ended up they ended up firing her. Now, here's the deal. I posted this story. And I posted the story saying, quote, and these are my words, wow, they went there on social media. Sheesh. Do our peers share and hide their feelings because they are, quote, smarter than these two? All opinions respectfully welcome. That's what I said. Now, I've got a coworker, and I'm not going to call her out. I'm not even going to read her comment because she hasn't given me authorization to do so. Hopefully she's listening, and if she is, feel free to call us up and be down with the show. 804-402-2893. Her is in social media, so if you want to go and look at it, you can go and look at it. But I'm not going to call her out on the show. I'm not going to do that. But what she says, and I'm paraphrasing, is could it possibly be that we're just as horrified by these sentiments as anybody else? And she questions whether I am suggesting that I'm working with closeted racists. I think that's a fair response.
Yeah.
I think her response to me posting that was a fair response. Right. To which I said, and these again, are my words, and I'll paraphrase my words, and then Joe, I want you to jump in. My intention is to open the discussion because I found that people are afraid to speak about anything uncomfortable. That's why we have folks like Rolf who we find out about afterwards. His roommate knew. Most folks who do these things have someone that are close to them that knew. But we, most of us, not me, are afraid to talk about it. Black folks and white folks alike. I'll stop there. I said a lot more. Joe, I want you to jump in right here, and then I want the diva after you.
Wow. Okay. Let's shoot this back one more time. And Grizzy, help me out. I know Charisma. Help me out.
Okay.
The question you asked was, and your question. Read me your question one more time, and I'm gonna give you the answer that I would tell you.
I basically said, quote, wow, they went there in social media. Sheesh. Do our peers share and hide their feelings because they are, quote, smarter than these two?
And stop. Let's be clear. Yes, we work around a bunch of racist people who sit there and hide their feelings, behind pretense, who hide their feelings behind jobs, who hide their feelings behind a lot of nonsense. Now, what I'll say about this, and I'm going to catch flack for this one, the firemen, you have every right to, and freedom of speech, I'm going to give it to you. Freedom of speech is our God-given, what is it?
Right.
Right.
It's all right.
It's our right.
Like,
We have a right to say how we feel.
I don't know if I would say it's God-given, but it is
Well,
a
okay.
right.
Well, all right. Let me do this. It's the people who wrote the constitutionally given right, quote unquote, to say how we feel. Now, does it say that you can say how you feel just like ain't no half step when Marcus say? We don't have step around here, right? We don't bull.
Yes.
Okay, with what we doing. So if that's how you felt, I would much rather know how you feel up front than to have one of them closet people sitting there smiling in your face that want to be your friend but talking about you so bad behind your back and plotting on you at the same time. At least I know where you stand and I can deal with you face to face. The ones we have to worry about so much, it's like this cat. How do you go into a church? How do you go
kick it for an hour?
And kick it for an hour. You get to sit around these people, and you. From my understanding, and my mother and I were talking about this. She said, and my pops, he was like, "Well, he was in there, and he told her that I'm gonna spare your life, so you can go back and tell the story.
Yeah.
So you want to be a martyr for something that you doing based on some nonsense that you learned."
And he admitted to what he had done when he was captured, and he was captured with no incident, with a bulletproof vest.
Oh, stop!
And nobody.
We ain't
wanna
even
go
going there, right?
You don't wanna do that.
Diva, jump in here. I know you're listening to the discussion. I mean, I look at this.
No,
let me just kind of share what my thought was, and then I want you to respond, Diva. Basically, my point was to, like I said to my coworker and whoever was reading, I wanted to stir the discussion. I wanted to bring this up so that we can talk about it.
Uncomfortable.
Well, she was uncomfortable, and I respect that she was uncomfortable about it. But I think a lot of times, and you mentioned white liberals, I think a lot of times white liberals, who I think are the ones that we view as allies,
are not.
Simply because those are the descendants of the abolitionists, for the most part. I think that it is incumbent upon them to check their brethren who are not properly maintaining their position constitutionally that all men are created equal. Just like
we weren't created men in the
well, we were 3/5, which is in there. Just like I will check any man that says the N-word around me. Just like I will check ignorance, pull your pants up, and all of that kind of stuff. Diva, I want you to jump in here because I understand why she said what she said.
Right.
And I don't think that she thought that she would be this much of a part of the show. But her response, I think, was typical to the response a lot of times that we get from white folk who don't like to discuss racism.
Right.
To that you say what?
Well, I say that I think there are a lot of closet racists, but I also think there are good people out there who are just afraid to speak their point. And that's all races, all colors. There's people who are black that are afraid to stand up and say this is wrong. You know, they don't want the repercussions. They don't want, you know, somebody racist maybe combating with them or threatening them or whatever like that. So it goes on both sides of the fence, where people are just fearful, and they don't have the heart that they had back in the 60s, where they're marching down the street with guns or whatever, you know, that Malcolm X type of mentality. Nobody has that anymore. You know, people, or very few people have that kind of heart. So I look at it from the other side too. Not everybody is a racist. They might just fear speaking up.
I'm going to come back to this throughout the whole show. I understand that the way the show is going to go is that we're going to talk about it because we're talking about it through our perspective, through the African American perspective.
I invited her as well as another white brother of mine who is very, very fair in his assessment. For what it's worth, I invited them both to join me on the show. I haven't heard from either of them.
Right. And the reason why, and I'm speaking for them since they, you extended the invitation.
But how you gonna speak for them, Grizzly? You don't fit them.
Excuse me.
You don't fit. You don't fit that bill. You can't speak for somebody who's a coward.
No,
I wouldn't call them cowards.
You wouldn't call them cowards, but
that's my opinion.
Okay, that's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
I call them short of a coward because here's, and I like to, you're a fair and balanced guy, Marcus. Like you said, you'll challenge me if I drop the N-bomb, and you would challenge anybody else if they said something very ignorant and stupid. So why are we, as black people in America, have to be held accountable? Why we have to talk to our young brothers and sisters about how not to wild out at Ferguson and not have to wild out at Baltimore, when we the ones, the actual victims, or our kids that look like, the victim is people that look like our children are the ones, and we're the ones who have to, as the good Negro, why won't we have that conversation with our kids? Make sure we tell our kids, obey the police. Don't get your head knocked in. The police are good, and you might be suspected of this, that, and that. Why are we not focusing, and the media is mainly guilty of this, of holding white people accountable for creating this punk ass white boy? Because that's who's doing it. White people,
very fair.
White people, media, the whole culture in and of itself, the whole Southern culture, and I'm glad we're on bring the Confederate flag into this, because all of that, if I was white and I felt like you took a piece of my pie, I could easily go off. I could see how they could easily get caught up in it. And I'll say this and I'll wrap this up. I speak from a perspective where I just finished up my ancestry thing, Mark. I want to tell you that. I got all the way back to 1793. My family is 1/3 white, 1/3 Chickahominy Indian, and 1/3 slave, black African American, African. So I can speak from all perspectives, and honestly, I can see how black folk got that, how my own personal lineages in my family got me to be where I don't have a piece of their pie. Right. I understand it.
No, I can dig it. Ain't no how to step on Marcus J, because I, like you, inspired by you, as I have been inspired by you on many different things. I was inspired by you to do Ancestry.com as well. And I also got back to the 1700s and found that a large portion of my ancestry, and I didn't even have to get that far. I just got back to the 1890s before I found the first white person. Right. And it was pure white after, before that. And so I can dig it.
How we get cut off from their pie?
Well, I mean, they was dipping in our pie.
Exactly.
Which is the reason how we got mixed up.
Shout out to the Rock.
Didn't you say your grandmother called you piss colored? That's why you piss colored.
That's how I piss colored.
That's how you piss colored. Whereas some of us are a little bit darker. But I think we need to. You touched on something that was so great, man. You talked about how the culture that we have in this country is what created Dylan Roth. When you can look at, when you were talking about Meet the Press, I thought that you were going to go in a direction. You didn't go in that direction, so I'll kind of touch on it now. Chuck Todd did a story yesterday talking about gun violence, and he did a whole story about gun violence, knowing the culture, the country, and the stuff that's on right now. He did a whole story about people who are perpetrators of gun violence, and he didn't have nobody in the story but black males.
Now,
that's it. That's it. That's all he had.
The first word
we got in a country right now where a white man went into a black church and killed 9 people. We are talking about 2 white male fugitives who they can't find, has been out on the street for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? But they still will do a story and talk about gun violence.
It puts 10 black guys straight in a row doing vignettes.
And
That's hard.
no white people in
No,
that
none.
at all. And so, liberal white person, when you see this as a black person, you're going to be pissed. And you're going to feel some kind of way about that. Especially when you look and you see we live in a fair and balanced country.
Allegedly.
But then you have the leader of a right-wing group that Dylan Roth allegedly credits with helping radicalize him against black people, has donated tens of thousands of dollars to Republicans, such as presidential candidates Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, and Rick Santorum.
I'm not surprised.
Earl
Santorum
Holt
said he gave his money back.
had given, Ted Cruz said he gave the
Ted
money
Cruz,
back.
I know.
Ted Cruz gave the money
he got
back.
caught.
Earl Holt has given $65,000 to Republican campaign funds in recent years, while inflammatory remarks, including that black people were, quote, the laziest, stupidest, and most criminally inclined race in the history of the world.
Be so lazy when I had
were
your daughter
posted. Yes, okay. You know, when I see stuff like that, I need you white folk to check them.
Yes.
And I don't think that there's anything wrong with me for thinking that you need to check them.
But once again, I go back to that whole word I used earlier, coward. They not going to check them because what were we just talking about? The closet racist. Closet. You know
He
what?
secretly
a lot of
believes-
people
But I
have
think the
those
diva was
tendencies.
on, I think the diva was onto it though. I don't think that it's because see the truth is, and I don't mean to cut you off, Joe, 'cause I have an idea where you were going, and I'll let you make your point. But we wouldn't be free if it wasn't for white folk. Even though we wouldn't be enslaved if it wasn't for white folk.
Well, wait a minute. We would be enslaved. It won't for us.
We did it too.
Yeah,
That's
did it
the
to us.
point. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we were the ones that was out there with them.
Yeah.
Helping enslave us.
Yeah, we
you know,
enslaved
so
each other.
that's why I get so caught up in this devil speak and white folk are evil and all that kind of stuff. We messed up too.
Yeah,
we,
I agree.
we messed
You're right.
up too. And so when the diva said earlier that it's more about fear, I think she's right, man.
Fear of what? Fear of reprisal? Fear of being called out, or fear
You'll be
of being
called a
wait a minute, hold
Tom.
on. Fear of being called on the carpet because you're not supporting your race or supporting your white anonymity, whatever you want to sit there and call
it. It could be
it.
fear of physical violence. I mean, people who supported us, white folks that
think-
supported us back in the day, were lynched just like we were.
Okay, guess what?
You know what I'm
no,
saying?
I don't know if I remember any white folk being lynched.
Oh yeah, they were.
They were lynched?
Oh yeah. If you
Yeah,
think
they were
about
killed
But they could take-
Schwerner, Goodman.
We talked about that, Mississippi
Schwerner,
Burning.
Goodman, and I can't remember the third guy.
And
But
they
yeah.
were called N-word lovers.
Lovers,
Yeah, okay, they were
and
N-word
all
lovers.
kinds
I
of
get
other
it.
stuff.
But you
Lose
know
the
what?
job.
I still have to go back to the point. You know what? For every understanding that white folk did assist in bringing us or helping us get to where we are, I still hate the fact that we had to go back to the fact and give people. I didn't need your help. I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm that dude who just doesn't
You
feel.
didn't need whose help?
Well, I gotta quantify because I don't want to say it the wrong way, and I want it to be taken out of context.
I mean, you ain't gonna have
When,
stuff.
when
'cause
you sit
home.
there and say, you, just like I'm not gonna give a woman credit on Father's Day.
Okay.
I'm not gonna give them a pass just because they helped out on something that, guess what, we all should have been doing from the beginning.
No, I can dig that. Malcolm
That's
X
what I
said something
meant.
similar. He said that if you pull the 6-inch knife 3 inches out my back, I shouldn't give you credit for that, especially if you're the one that put it in there to
Exactly.
begin with. Ain't no #Steppin Marcus
So
J.
true.
Live from the Den Legacy in that radio. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this Confederate flag stuff. So if you're listening and you want to get in on that, call us at 804-402-2893. I got the Diva, Big Bro Joe, and one of the founders, Jay Grizzy. Ain't no
Yo.
Steppin with Marcus J. Live from the Den. We young, gifted, and black up in this joint.
The